one of our partners, David Lawler, with Run of the Mill made. So you get a little taste of the project before. We ready to go?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just shut off some lights.
Woonsocket, a beacon of textile manufacturing by the mid-19th century, was shaped by visionaries like Edward Harris. Born in 1801 in the humble village of Lime Rock, Rhode Island, Edward Harris embarked on a journey into textile under his uncle William Harris at Valley Hall Mills. His ambitions led him to Albion Mill, where he swiftly ascended to the position of superintendent. With $3,500 from Albion Mill and a generous loan of $1,000 from his father, Harris set his sight on Woonsocket, Rhode Island, ready to weave his own legacy. Our very own land here at Island Place has a rich history. Once owned by James Arnold, a man whose grandfather, John Arnold, was the first permanent resident of Woonsocket. A small parcel of land was sold off to Edward Harris in 1843 for $800. As we fast forward to 1865 and 1875, Edward Harris had the Woonsocket Rubber Company mills built. This mill complex perched just below the Woonsocket Falls is one of the many constructed mills along the Blackstone River during the 19th century. This island, crafted by the mill tail races, became a hub of industry. The Woonsocket Rubber Company, renowned for manufacturing rubber rolls for the Bailey Washing and Wringing Machine Company, also produced boots, shoes, clothing, and an array of other rubber products. Over the years, the mill was repurposed for various textile production and eventually became a flea market. However, this mill fell into disuse and abandonment. Today, we stand at the turning point. Naval Works, Blackstone River Valley, and its partners are breathing new life into this historic mill complex. The transformation of Millrace will usher in 70 stunning, affordable riverfront apartments and 23,000 square feet of commercial space, right in the heart of downtown Woonsocket.
Good. All right, you got a taste. I'd like to introduce our federal delegation. All the funding that goes into Millrace, the important housing tax credit, the important historic credits, all flow from the federal government to the state. With that, I'd like to introduce Senator Jack Reed. Senator Reed is our senior senator and is behind pretty much all the funding that flows to Rhode Island and to this project. Senator Reed.
Thank you. It's nice to be here on Joe Golick Day. I've been working with Joe and the Blackstone River Valley team for years, and they've done extraordinary work, and I want to commend them and thank them for making this day possible. This Millrace district development is going to be a superb contribution to the community for working families and for the entire community. Let me recognize Governor McKee, Senator Whitehouse, Representative Amo. Thank you also to Lynn Peterson from Neighborhood Works America, Rhode Island Foundation President David Cicilline, and former Congressman, President Alvin Safur of Community Housing Capital, Alvin, Carrie Zaslow, Director of the Providence Revolving Fund, Terry Gray of DEM, Regional EPA Administrator David Cash, Jeannie Kohler from LIST Rhode Island, James Comer of Rhode Island Housing, Kathleen Amante of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston, and Melina Lodge of the Housing Network of Rhode Island. And I think I can relieve all of my succeeding speakers of introducing everybody, so.
The audience thanks you.
They all want to do it. Yeah, I know they do, but I preempted them. We're beginning a new year, but let's look back at 2023, that a year Rhode Island put some important programs in place to address affordable housing challenges. Among things is Governor McKee committed millions of dollars to affordable housing, created a housing department, is focused, along with the General Assembly, in streamlining the process of building affordable housing in Rhode Island. They've done a superb job. And this project is the beginning of the results of their efforts and other efforts. Now, again, Joe Garlick and his team, Neighborhood Works, have done a superb job. I've seen lots of fancy proposals, ribbon cuttings, or et cetera, but when Joe does it, you come back later when they open up the project and people have homes, which is superb. Mill Race will soon provide 70 new units of housing here in Woonsocket, with every unit reserved for Rhode Islanders making not more than 100% of the area median income. This is working housing, which we need desperately. This is the housing for those nurse practitioners who are in nursing homes. This is the housing for the people that get up very early and load trucks and do things that we don't notice but are critical to our lives. And everyone in this state, in this city, should have access to safe, affordable, decent housing, and this is a step forward, and I thank you all. Now, I've been a member of the Senate Banking Committee and the Appropriations Committee for many, many years. And I've been working hard to support these initiatives. In fact, prior to my election to Congress, one of my events was participating in the March in Washington for affordable housing in 1990. We've come a little ways. We haven't come far enough. But one of the things I was pleased to do was work closely and help create the Housing Trust Fund and the Capital Magnet Fund. These programs are funding this project, as well as the Home Partnership Program and EPA's Brownfields Fund. But I was particularly proud to work with my colleagues and deliver a $1 million earmark for this specific project, because that little bit of extra funding helps release over $10 million. But as you know, the programs that we've used in this project are threatened now by our colleagues in the House, the GOP leadership. They want drastic cuts. I think that's wrong. I think rather than cutting affordable housing, we should invest in it more, so that everyone has an opportunity for a safe, affordable house. Housing is so critical to everything. How can you expect a child to do well in school when they're in 3 or 4 different apartments during the school year? How can you expect people to prosper when they're in facilities that have lead poisoning and other problems? This is about investing in America and our potential. And so we've got to do it. And with folks like Joe and his gang, it gets done. Thank you very much.
Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Joe. It is wonderful to be with all of you this morning. I still haven't completely gotten used to Gabe Amo being part of the delegation, so it's still a thrill to see him and to recognize his predecessor, David Cicilline, who's gone on to other things. But we miss him as much as we love Gabe. We do miss David, and David, it's good to have you with us. Governor McKee, you and Joe Shekarchi, the Speaker, have really put your backs into solving the Rhode Island housing crisis. And I want to give a word of appreciation to you and to the Speaker for your efforts in that regard. They're beginning to bear fruit. There's more to be done, as you know, but thank you very much for that. And as Jack pointed out, over and over again, we come up to NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley occasions, and over, Joe Garlick and the NeighborWorks team have delivered something wonderful. And it just continues to work, particularly here in Woonsocket, but throughout the Blackstone River Valley. So I wanted to just give a big thank you to you, Joe, and your team for really consistent, superb work. I will take advantage of Jack's leadership and not make other recognitions. But I do want to recognize Jack, because Senator Reid in Washington is Mr. Housing. You know, he sits on the banking committee. He doesn't just sit on the banking committee. He's the senior Democrat on the banking committee. If he weren't chairing armed services, he'd be chairing the banking committee. He has a lot of clout, and he uses it on housing. And as an appropriator Reid supports the work of banking committee member Reid in making sure that funding goes behind the work that the banking committee does. I think that every single housing award that is available in Washington, Jack has won, and now he's on the double rotation to go back and get him a second time. So it's really terrific to recognize Jack's work here, the $1 million earmark that he produced, his establishment of the National Housing Trust Fund, and so much more. So thank you all for being here. Bravo, Woonsocket and NeighborWorks. I should also mention Lynn Peterson, who's here from NeighborWorks America, the part of the over organization. So thank you all very much. Great work. We're proud to support the tax credits that make this possible.
Thanks, Senator. Yeah, we've had a few cast changes since our last one. Joni Strausman Brandon is the Northeast Regional NeighborWorks Director. Thanks for coming, Joe. Congressman Amo, please come and say a few words. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you, Joe. And while we might be here in Woonsocket, a city that I love, Joe and I were just trading notes, and kids from Sisson Street in Pawtucket make it very far, and so we share that in common. But of course, we're here in Woonsocket, and I am so grateful to be here with all of you. You know, I spent a lot of time talking to people throughout the Blackstone Valley, across the 1st District, over the last several months, and this is one of the biggest issues that we face in housing, and it's so great to see an issue met with so many leaders driving at solutions. And you've heard the recognition of many here, but today really is a true testament to what we can do to solve this problem together, starting with Senator Reid and his leadership in getting the resources here, the governor, the work that you have done, really driving at all of this work, and certainly my colleagues in the delegation and my predecessor, who is in so many ways a champion for every community here in Rhode Island, but I know that Woonsocket has a special place in his heart. So I just want to say thank you, because you know, I didn't exactly play a large role in the work today, but I am putting a down payment on work to come ahead, working and building on the dramatic and transformational impact of things like the low income housing tax credit, which is so vital to projects like this and so many more that can be catalytic for our communities to build them up even stronger than they are today. So thank you to everybody who has been involved, and I look forward to more work with you in the future.
I'm pleased to introduce Governor Dan McKee. Historic investments in housing, Governor. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joe, and it's great to be here. Wow, the room did fill up after I sat down. A lot of people are very interested in this effort that's going on in the state of Rhode Island, and again, I do have to echo, you know, Senator Whitehouse, one of his resolutions is to bring as much resources back to our state as possible. Senator, I second that motion, so thank you so much. And we're not here talking about these things and the momentum that we have in the state of Rhode Island without the leadership of Senator Reid, Senator Whitehouse. David Cicilline, who was all in on Woonsocket when he was a congressman. There's no question that he spent more time here, I think, in this community than any other community, certainly as much as any other community. So David, thank you for that leadership. And Gabe, welcome aboard. There is work to do, and we're going to look forward to be working with you to make great things happen. Neighborhood Works, thank you. And there's no question over the last 2 years that we have made some unprecedented investments in housing, and then we backed that up by setting up an office for housing, a Secretary of Housing included with Stephen Pryor. So I can tell you that not only did the General Assembly, and I think that mention in Speaker Sakachi was really appropriate, because it's great to have a speaker who's leading the charge and a governor who's willing to follow that lead, right? So not only a $250 million was approved and we put in the budget and approved by the General Assembly 2 years ago, but I believe that we're now approaching close to $500 million that's being invested in this particular space that has to do with providing housing for people in the state of Rhode Island that are having trouble finding housing. That's an enormous, contribution. But I can tell you, the tax credits and other things that we got passed last year in the legislation with the leadership of Stephen Pryor and the work that's going on in our office, we're making some significant progress. Housing in the pipeline, 37 development projects have been launched since I've been governor. Over 2,250 units of housing. This is extraordinary. When last year we might have actually had a little over 1,000 housing units that were built in the state of Rhode Island. This is doubling and tripling that momentum, and what we have in the pipeline is only going to pay more and more dividends. 529 new homes financed by the Rhode Island Housing, and a statewide down payment plan, because I believe that home ownership is part of this effort. We cannot, families and young people, we need to have in this state, and we need to keep them in the state, and home ownership is that path for those individuals who have careers ahead of them, and we don't want them to leave the state and have those careers somewhere else. But not only in that down payment program, 1,400 first-time home buyers with down payment and closing costs. This has got to make you feel very good, Senator, that the funds that you're appropriating and the way that we're managing those funds are really paying dividends. And I can tell you that we will be asking the General Assembly for a sizable housing bond that will be on the ballot in November, and more details to come on that issue. So I want to, this is like my second home, by the way, having a business here for well over 30 years. I really feel as though that this is part of my family, the city of Woonsocket. Not only are we investing in the schools, but also investing in the economy in real strong ways, and this is one way that we can actually continue to do that work. So I thank Mayor Chris Beauchamp, all the town council members, all the members of the leadership of this community. This is evidence that we are serious about investing in the city of Woonsocket. Nearly $11 million in this development is once completed, revitalizing the mill buildings. It will no longer be vacant. And I think that's a really important thing in Woonsocket. And I speak as a fellow Woonsocketer, right? Somebody that has been in this community for years, knowing where the strengths and the weaknesses are. And we got to make sure that this economy in the state, and in this community in particular, grows. And that's going to be one of our main points that I'll make in the state address shortly, where we're going to be raising incomes and raising equity and personal wealth for every family in the state of Rhode Island. And Woonsocket certainly is on my radar screen. So I want to just say 2024, we're very happy to be here. We made it through 2023 and a number of different challenges, but mostly really upside. David, thank you for your leadership as a congressman as well. And I really do feel as though that one of our main goals in the state of Rhode Island over the next few years and making shaping it inside of this housing issue is keeping our young people in the state of Rhode Island, keeping our sons and daughters and grandchildren in the state of Rhode Island. And as a new grandparent of Mabel James, first Christmas, I'm very excited to see a future for her as well, 20 years down the road. So that's what we're building today. We're building for the future, and I thank you so much for the leadership here in Woonsocket to make this happen. Thank you.
Unfortunately, Mayor Beauchamp couldn't be here today, but I'd like to acknowledge Garrett Mancieri. Garrett's a member of the City Council, and Councilwoman Gonzalez is also here, Valerie Gonzalez. Garrett was really instrumental in helping pass some legislation, local legislation, to create a arts and entertainment district in this whole neighborhood. And that's allowed us some of the flexibility we need to develop this project. So Garrett, thank you for your leadership. I also need to acknowledge our representatives at the State House, Senator Melissa Murray. Thank you for being here. Rep. Steve Casey in the back there. You're not monitoring the room for fire code violations. All right, good. Both have been really helpful in moving the project along. Thank you. And last but not least, I want to call out Mike DeBrois. Mike is the planning director. Mike has been really supportive of this project and helped move it along through many regulatory hurdles. So Mike, thank you. Sincerely appreciate it. Mike's the latest in a long line of great planning directors. This whole historic district was an idea that N. David Boulay had. I don't know if you folks remember N. David Boulay. He was a planning director, and Mike, you've really picked up N. David's legacy. Thank you. All right, this next group of folks they have an interesting role to play in this project. They're the ones you approach very early on and say, gee, we have this great idea. Would you invest in it? It's sort of akin to saying, yeah, we're going to build a bridge here. Can you put up some money? So I want to have them take a little bit of the limelight here today because they really helped out when this was just an idea. And first on the list is Alvin Safir with Community Housing Capital. Alvin has traveled the furthest today, I think, from Cleveland, Atlanta. You're all over the place, Alvin. Alvin, say a few words, please.
Hello, everyone. Alvin Safir, Community Housing Capital. Community Housing Capital is a community development finance corporation institution whose purpose is to provide financing for nonprofit organizations that are members of NeighborWorks America. We've been in existence for about 20 years. On average, we lend about $85 million to $100 million a year to organizations all over the country. We come in early, we're patient lenders, and we provide financing that covers the whole spectrum from beginning to the end in affordable housing. In 2015, I was a consultant with Community Housing Capital, and I was brought in to underwrite this project for Community Housing Capital. Because of the capital stack, the amount of sources that were needed to get us here today, when I presented this deal to our loan committee, I said, this one's going to take a little while, okay? Because the process to get to the sources, to get everything that you need, it takes a little time. So in working with Joe, I came out a year after it was approved. I met with Kristen. We went through everything. We talked about everything, and I said, wow, this is a great site. And I remember Kristen saying, wow, man, you get it. You really get it. I said, yeah, I get it. I get it. So we moved through the process. I thought that sometime around 2020, we'd be ready to go. Now, I've been in this industry for many years. I've underwritten a lot of projects and things of that nature, just as Joe has been developing these projects for many years. And we covered every base, and then COVID hit. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? So that added more time onto the process, but it never stopped the process of getting us where we are today. We spent a lot of hours, a lot of nights. There were a lot of conversations and a lot of needs that you guys brought to the table to make this thing happen. So here we are today. I'm just thankful that Joe chose Community Housing Capital to be a partner in this process. And I just want to say thank you to everyone.
Yup, lots of conversations. I'd like to introduce Carrie Zaslow with the Providence Revolving Fund. Carrie, again, stepped up very early in the process and provided some pre-development funding. Carrie?
The term "It Takes a Village" could have originated out of this project, as is clear from the speaking program alone. And as we were told to keep this brief, I'm not going to recognize everyone, but I will just say I'm proud that the Providence Revolving Fund is part of that village. And don't let the name fool you. PRF is actually a statewide community development financial institution. Our lending programs and services aim not only to preserve physical structures, but also to invigorate the community spirit, support family stability, and inspire future generations. We're committed to being more than just a fund. We're a catalyst for enduring change, making lasting impact on the lives of individuals, families, and entire neighborhoods. As we look at the projects that we're interested in, we look not only to restore and maintain important architectural landmarks, but also to rejuvenate communities that they anchor, fostering a sense of place and belonging. This project does just that. The beautiful buildings that will be preserved in the Island Place Historic District will be reused to create housing that's affordable for all Rhode Islanders. We also recognize that this project and NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley see the importance of community economic development and neighborhood vitality by creating housing that's located with high-speed internet, near the community bread oven, which is right behind us, and of course the Levitt Amp music series, and all of what Woonsocket has to offer. Now, I started thinking about this, and it did make me feel a little old, but I'll just say I've worked on projects in Woonsocket for the past 2 decades. And in my office, I have a mug that says, "And Woonsocket." It was a gift from a friend of mine who said it could be my motto because I say it so often. I think I need a new one that says, "Of course, Woonsocket." So again, congratulations to the entire team of NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley. Congratulations to Woonsocket. And I am really looking forward to not just breaking ground, but coming back for the ribbon cutting and many more occasions to come.
Thanks, Carrie. David Cicilline is now the president of the Rhode Island Foundation, and his predecessor and the foundation actually made a really significant investment in this project very early on. They bought the bridge.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning. I'm really delighted to be here. First to say thank you to Joe Garlick for your incredible leadership, not only on this project, but for all of the work that you've done. It's had such an impact on the city of Woonsocket. So thank you to Joe and to your team. And thank you to our federal delegation. I can now say this objectively. We have the best federal delegation in the country, led by our senior senator, Senator Whitehouse, Congressman Gabe Amo, and of course Congressman Seth Magaziner. But as Senator Whitehouse mentioned, Senator Reid is known in the Senate of the United States as the leader on so many issues, but housing is certainly one of the most important ones, and he uses his position as an appropriator to make sure that we get resources here to Rhode Island. His partner in that work is our great Senator Whitehouse, and now Gabe Amo and Seth Magaziner. But Senator Reid mentioned this, all of the tax credits and all of the programs that are really underlie this project are under attack right now in Washington. So we're not only grateful for their leadership in bringing $1 million to this project, but to being in the fight to protect these essential tools so that we can create more affordable housing. So they deserve another big round of applause. And Gabe Amo is a much kinder person than I am, because the same thing happened to me when I got elected after Congressman Kennedy left. I was at a bunch of events of things that he did, and I just simply said thank you when I was thanked. I said, "You're welcome." He acknowledged, so he's going to be a great advocate for this city, I know that. And thank you, Governor, for your incredible leadership, you and Speaker Sakachi and the members of the General Assembly who have made housing a real priority. I think we're finally seeing a difference because of a serious investment to address this issue. And the Rhode Island Foundation considers this an important priority. As Joe mentioned, we created a revolving fund here in Blackstone Valley, specifically for this purpose with NeighborWorks. Committed at just about $1 million to that, really to test this proposal as to whether or not this kind of funding will enable organizations to do the kind of work that we're seeing today. So Joe has been a great partner. It's a great model. This will continue to be a really important priority for the Rhode Island Foundation. Just a week ago, we were with Senator Reid, where we were announcing the Pay for Success program with the Rhode Island Coalition to End Homelessness. Another example, we have to be as innovative as we can, make investments in very different, different ways to be sure that we're doing our part as Rhode Island's community foundation, one of the oldest and largest community foundations in America. And we intend to really use our resources to have real impact on this housing crisis in our state and be a full partner in this work. So congratulations, Joe.
I'd like to introduce Joni Strausman-Brandon from NeighborWorks America. Joni's the Northeast Regional Director.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I should just say ditto to what everybody just said and sit down, but I do have some remarks, so I will take advantage. On behalf of all of us at NeighborWorks America, we congratulate NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley and all of its partners and supporters that are here for this amazing, amazing redevelopment that will bring not only much needed, affordable, quality housing, but economic vibrancy to this area. So congratulations for all of that. NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley is an affiliate of NeighborWorks America. We are a congressionally chartered nonprofit that supports some of the best community development organizations across the country, like NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley, which honestly, I say this very honestly, is one of our best in the country. And we're very proud. Yep. We support organizations through providing grants, technical assistance, training, and loans. You heard from Alvin, who is from one of our affiliated capital corporations, Community Housing Capital, who provided the very, very important early and patient capital, so critical to community development, especially at this scale. And he didn't really say, to keep that money committed for that period of time is significant. So we're very grateful for that. But we knew we saw the possibility here and how important it was. And NeighborWorks America also gave some money up front for this development. So because of that, I want to very much thank your congressional delegates. As we've all been appreciating Senator Reid. Thank you, Senator Whitehouse, Congressman Amo, and former Congressman Cicilline, who've been very supportive of NeighborWorks America and NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley. If we didn't have the appropriation from Congress, NeighborWorks America wouldn't exist. We couldn't do this great work, and we couldn't support efforts like NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley. So we're so grateful to you in Congress, and we hope we have a budget real soon so we could get more money. Don't tell Mariette I said that. But anyway, but the federal investment that they authorized leverages taxpayer dollars by a ratio of 68 to 1. So for every dollar that we invest, that gets leveraged by 68 additional dollars. So the impact is very, very deep. In fact, over the last 5 years, and this is going to deserve some applause, NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley has generated over $102 million in investment in the Woonsocket area. So let's get into it. They've created jobs, supported businesses, built homes, changing lives, and re-imaging community assets that are so critical to health, wealth, and prosperity. So we're so proud of the accomplishments of Joe, his team, his board of directors, for persevering in this development of the Millrace properties. It takes special organizations like NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley that are committed and skilled, and I emphasize skilled, because in this development alone there are, as you've heard, 25 funding sources, painstaking historic preservation, brownfield remediation, design, climate-friendly construction. It's exhausting, and that's just this one development. They still have other developments that they're working on at the same time. So we're just so grateful for your work, Joe, and all the supporters, and just happy to be here, and thank you all, and congratulations.
Just a couple little footnotes there. Rhode Island Housing and the Rhode Island Local Initiative Support Corporation also invested in the bridge early, but they have another part in the program later on. So I figured they'll get to say their piece later. But thank you, Rhode Island Housing and LISC, for your early pre-development investments. You've heard a lot about my team. I gotta have folks raise their hands if you could. I see Rosalind there, Brandon. If you could all just kind of wave your hands, Christian, Meg. They all made this possible. And a special acknowledgement to Bill Lewis. Bill is the co-director of real estate development, and I think this project is your 4th child, Bill, isn't it? You're going to be adopting it. You certainly spent enough time making it happen. Stan Eason, Alan Noisette, and Terry Barboza also helped out too. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention a few of the other pre-development team members, the development team members. Getting insurance these days, I don't know if folks have had to get insurance for a project. It is a nightmare, and we were lucky to come across a really amazing insurance broker in Carla Andrews with Intercontinental Insurance and Claire Galvin. They made it happen. We were rejected about 13 times by other insurers, but it happened before closing, and we were very, very happy. But thanks to Carla and her team. Gotta thank John O'Hearn, who was our original architect on this, and then he passed it off to Ed Wojcik. Ed's here with his son Ben from their firm. Vin Jakes with Bach and Clark is our environmental guy. Ransom Engineering also did environmental work. Scott Moorhead with SFM Engineering. The team at Situate Surveys, I see John Menzinger, who started this project and then retired, actually. I don't think they're related, but John is so enthusiastic about the historic site, and it was always a pleasure to work with you, John, and the team at Situate. Mike and Julie Raimondo and Kerry Rice, thank you. And finally, there's Kim Smith with McRosty and Ned Connors. They're our historic consultants. They're the ones that help try and find a medium between, the original historic features of a project and what we can actually afford. So they bridge those gaps between those regulatory sources. And certainly last but not least, the folks at Rhode Island Housing, Ann Berman and her development team were really great. I know they were, they've been pushing this project for years. And thank you for your support over the years. Jeff Swanson, Dean Harrison, and Lauren Farley were great partners in bringing this project to fruition. And actually, last but not least, Nationwide Construction. Mark and Pete Fiore. Pete, why don't you just wave? Pete's doing all the construction. And couldn't ask for a better firm to work with. Thank you. All right, next up on the program, the environmental contamination on old historic industrial sites has to be dealt with, and we have two great partners in the following agencies. Terry Gray from the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. Terry, you want to say a few words?
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. You've heard from senior government leaders, you've heard from housing experts, you've heard from funders, you've heard from planners, and you might be asking yourself, all right, what's the environmental guy doing here? And there's really kind of two things I want to say about that. First is Governor McKee has made it clear to everybody in the state administration that addressing the housing challenges in Rhode Island is critical to the long-term success of the state, and every state agency has to be aligned and focused on addressing those challenges. So there's a part for that for DEM, and I'm very proud to be a part of projects like this. The second part is a little bit of the sort of the preliminary work that Joe mentioned a little bit earlier, which is the legacy of some of our industrial heritage. that's occurred in Woonsocket and across the state. It's not unique to this city at all. It's really part of our role as the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. And when people have a vision for the revitalization of a project or a property like this, one of the first things they have to do is look back in time and say, all right, what are the legacies of past uses? And some of those legacies are contamination. And we're pleased to be able to work with developers and provide funding to developers to do the investigations and the remediation work that makes these properties safe for all the use and all the people that will live and work here in the future. And that's really critical. Our funding comes in the form of a $500,000 grant in the history of this from something called the State Brownfields Program. That's funded through a green bond that you've probably seen on the ballot a few times in the past few years. And what the green bond really does is allow us to really deal with a lot of environmental challenges in cities and towns across Rhode Island and really invest. And it could be investing in things like recreation, it could be investing in brownfields redevelopment, it could be investing in maintaining our agricultural history, and a lot of other issues. The only other thing I wanted to add is from an environmental standpoint, I sit in on a lot of discussions about land use in Rhode Island. And there's huge pressures on land use, right? And part of it is housing, part of it is renewable energy, part of it is economic development, and part of it is conservation. And there's only so much land, right? We're a little place, and we're very, very densely populated. So there's a lot of pressure on the land that's left. And when I see a project like this, it just makes me think this is a home run, right? This is a win, 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 et cetera, because you're taking property that's in close proximity to existing infrastructure like water, sewer, electricity, transportation, and you're bringing it back for an unbelievable future reuse. And when you look at the environmental benefits of that, the climate benefits of that, the community benefits of that, it really is a home run. So I want to say I'm really pleased to be part of the team that made this project happen. Congratulations. This, like I said, this is a total home run, and I'm really looking forward to seeing like the opening day, if you will. So thank you very much.
Our federal partner in the remediation is Dr. David Cash. He's the Regional Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. David.
Thank you so much. And for those of you who don't know, I'm the current Kurt Spalding. So it's fantastic to be here celebrating this. Thank you so much to the current and former delegation. It's phenomenal to work with such forward-looking and wise partners in the federal government. And it's also great, I know they haven't been thanked yet, but the staff at EPA is phenomenal, and two folks representing the Brownfield program are here, Frank Gardner and Jim Byrne. I don't know where Jim is, but raise your hand. Big round of applause. And Kate Melanson on our government affairs team is here as well. So I'm going to just highlight some points that others have said, and this is also a kind of audience participation part of the program. And one is about return on investment that Joni brought up earlier. Our program in general in New England has an incredible return on investment. When we're talking about the federal dollars that you all allocate for us in the delegation. I want to do a quick thing. Does anybody have a dollar in the audience? Anybody has a dollar who wants $8 back? Hold on, let me just get this out. Hold on. Anybody? Nobody? You have okay, he's not a government official, so you have a dollar? Yeah. Okay, yeah, give me a dollar. We're not taking Venmo. So the Brownfields program in New England. $5. No, I said him first. Here's $8. So that's the investment that's made in New England. Every federal dollar leverages, as Joni said, $8 in general. In this particular project, $800,000 of EPA funding is going to leverage $34 million. Pretty amazing. Okay. That's the first audience participation. The second is, and Terry noted this, and this is, when you work in the environmental field, when you're a regulator like I am, it's sometimes hard to find those win-win situations, right? Often people think that, oh, there's a win for somebody and a loss for somebody else, or a win for the environment, a loss for business, which I don't believe in. This is a case where there are so many wins. So I'm gonna mention things about this project, and then the audience, you say win, if it's a win. Okay, so for example, we're gonna clean up a contaminated site. Win. We're gonna create local jobs. Win. We're gonna revitalize the community. Win. We're gonna do land conservation. Win. We're gonna drive economic development. Win. We're gonna keep Rhode Islanders in Rhode Island. Win. We're gonna make working housing. Win. And overall, we're turning a bad into a good. Win. 8 wins. Win, 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 win. Thank you. So the good investment. That was my personal money, by the way, not EPA.
And it's going to the Rhode Island Foundation.
There you go. So just a couple of little acknowledgements of folks I sort of skipped over here. Councilman Scott McGee is here. Councilman McGee, there you go. Thank you for coming. And I don't know how I forgot her, but Michelle Roberto Fonseca was our lawyer on the closing. Michelle and I spent countless hours getting ground down in the closing. Michelle, thank you for everything you've done. Okay, the next folks now are actually, they're the folks who are actually spending money on the project. I'd like to bring up Jeannie Cola with LISC, Rhode Island LISC. Jean is a longtime supporter of our organization through many resources, a lot of the pre-development, organizational support, and also the National Equity Fund, which purchases the tax credits for this project. Jean.
Good morning. This is a win, right? Dr. Cash said it, win, win, win. So I can't stand up here without thanking Senator Reed, who is just an incredible individual who cares so deeply about Rhode Island and about the people that he serves. And he puts his money where his mouth is. He creates policies, he brings resources home, and he invests in what makes sense. And so Senator Reed, thank you for that. Senator Whitehouse, his partner in crime, we appreciate all of the work that you do. You do it with a smile. You are committed to the work, and we love you for that. Thank you.
Just dropping it back.
The same. And Congressman Amo, it was a pleasure to sit down and speak with you a couple of weeks ago. And there are great expectations, and based upon our conversations, I know you will rise to meet them. So we look forward to that, and thank you for being here today. This is a win, 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 win. So I just want to thank our federal delegation. They bring resources to the state, and Governor McKee, thank you for allocating those resources for what matters in our state. Housing is an incredible need. We appreciate the historic investments, but we need more. We need consistent resources to deliver consistent results. And so we look forward to conversations with you, Secretary Pryor, who's here, and others as we look to the future. So I want to personally thank Joe Garlick and his team. Projects like this just don't happen. It is through vision and leadership that these things happen. I heard somebody say before we even started, Joe, that, or maybe it was you who said 13 years. And I think 13 years, holy moly, like that's a long time. We've got to figure out how to get these things done a bit faster. 13 years is a long time, but I'm not retiring. So, John, I'm sticking with it, kiddo. Anyway, LISC is such a proud partner with NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley. I first met Joe probably, I don't know, 30 years ago at this point, when I was working at Citizens Bank as a mortgage originator, coming up with products for people who were purchasing homes. And we had a lot of fun in those days. I think you were a team of like 2, maybe 3 people. We've really worked hard in Woonsocket through Joe's commitment to the work, and he has grown his team and his portfolio tremendously. But it's through the ongoing consistency of the support and the work that really gets us to this point. As Joe said, NEF is the investor in this project. Our low-income housing tax credits are great, we need more. But if we didn't have investors to buy the credits, we wouldn't have effective credits. So we're happy to stand up here as the investor in the credits to really get us over the hump and get this project done. So I look forward to the ribbon cutting. I want to thank all of the partners, because this isn't about one of us, this is about all of us. It takes a village, as people said earlier. So thank you all for being here, but thank you more for the support that you give to this project. We are here for today, we're here for tomorrow, and Joe, we're here for the next 10 projects, so bring them on. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeannie Cola. I'd like to bring up Secretary Stefan Pryor. I'm going to let you name all the programs you contributed to this project. It's quite an alphabet soup.
Thank you. Joe, it's such a pleasure to be with you. I want to start by offering additional recognition to Joe Garlick. We all have heard renditions of what's happened here. It's taken more than a dozen years, and we've heard about, Jean most recently articulated it, there was vision, there was passion, there was also persistence, there was resiliency, there was withstanding the zigzag of these processes, there was stick-to-itness. Did I mention persistence? Did I mention resilience? It took all of that. We do need to whittle away at some of that process. We do. Under Governor McKee, we are doing it. We're getting started in earnest. We have a ways to go. It's state, it's municipal, it's federal. Fortunately, we have a phenomenal federal delegation, and I want to thank our two senators, Reed and Whitehouse, for being there every step of the way. Those of us, Joe, who are doing this for a living, we can attest. You just couldn't have a better delegation, and Congressman Amo, thankfully, you know the way. Proud to have been a colleague in government with you and to see you rise to this position, and you're already at it on housing. I can attest right now, and Congressman Magaziner as well. Governor, thank you for giving us these resources. It does take, in addition to that persistence, it does take resources. If we are to write down the rates from the market, you have to bring value to a budget. You've got to bring tax credits. You've got to bring grants. You've got to bring other forms of value to get the property in a shape where budgetarily the units are more affordable. You have to do it. Joe, by our count, there are at least 15 sources of a public nature in this project. Folks, that's not one, that's not three, that's 15 different sources. And I'm not going to go through all of them. Don't worry, and we're late in the program. What I want to express to you, though, is that thanks to Governor McKee, there are Building Homes Rhode Island bond funds that have been allocated. The Housing Production Fund that has recently been established with an increment out of the conveyance tax is being allocated to this project. Out of the $250 million that went to housing in various forms, $175 million of that out of the American Rescue Plan is for some form of housing production or preservation. By the way, the vast majority of that is obligated already, and the rest of it, thanks to Carol Ventura and James Comer, is on the street. Nearly all of it. You have $500,000 from a community revitalization fund out of that $250 million. You have $1.4 million in Rhode Island Rebounds, the governor's first rendition of the program. You get the idea. But it was 15 sources plus, Joe. And there are a couple lessons out of that. One, it should be easier. We need to compress the programs. We need to make it easier to access. With more credit to Carol and more credit to James and to Ann Berman, there's a one-stop application that's on the street, deadline in about 2 weeks, for a variety of programs under Governor McKee. So it is becoming easier, but also we need to stay committed to financing housing. You can't just snap your fingers and make these projects happen in a day. You can't just snap your fingers and make them affordable. It requires resources. Thanks to Governor McKee, our administration is committed to housing. We're committed to increasing inventory in our state with projects just like this. So thankfully, there's more in store. Let's keep working at it together. Thank you so much, Joe, for your amazing work and persistence.